If you've ever seen the Back to the Future trilogy, you know a time machine was key to seeing the future. Well, now Climate Central has its own version. A time machine called the FloodVision Rover, a fully electric vehicle with one-of-a-kind technology. But instead of traveling through time, this rover, embarking on the Edge of America tour, shows us what future flooding could look like if we don't adapt to climate change.
4 high-definition cinema cameras, a LiDAR system, which is a laser system similar to what they use for augmented reality, and a GPS system. So basically similar to the Google Street View car. Any street that I drive down, we have 2 cameras shooting stereoscopically out each side, basically mapping the street for elevation within a few centimeters.
This data empowers Climate Central scientists to create striking visualizations of future flood risks decades into the future. These insights are critical for local communities as they plan and prepare for new evacuation routes and other adaptation measures.
With our visualizations, you'll be able to see if your Volkswagen will be underwater, if your front door will be underwater. So it makes it real for people.
Due to the combination of sea level rise and subsidence from climate change, coastal communities like this in Norfolk are at risk. In 20, 30, even 50 years, the shoreline that's right there now might be right where I'm standing.
Climate impacts in Norfolk are similar to the climate impacts all across coastal America. We are seeing more water coming out of its channels and our creeks and rivers and streams. We're seeing it come out of those water bodies and onto the landscape, into people's yards, onto the streets, and flooding people's houses and their properties. Here we have the highest rate of relative sea level rise on the East Coast. And it's so high because our land is sinking a little bit faster than the sea is actually rising here.
It's not just the sinking land. It's also how we've developed this region over time.
We used to have a lot of farmland, we used to have wetlands everywhere, and to accommodate people's interest in living here, like wanting to have houses here, we filled in all of those old wetlands, old creeks, and old wetland, and we filled it with whatever we could find, dirt, sand, concrete, to make the land stable enough to live on and stable enough to put things like the largest naval base in the world on. So we made these mistakes not really knowing that they were going to be so damaging in our past, and now today in the present we're feeling the impacts.
When we replace natural wetlands with impervious surfaces like asphalt, water has nowhere to go. As a result, floodwaters are now disrupting our daily lives in unforeseen ways.
Kids are struggling to get to school because the roads are impassable, and so instead of snow days like we had a long time ago, we're experiencing flood days. So kids are having delayed starts because there's a higher high tide and the roads to get to the schools are just too wet.
The real impact on daily life highlights the urgency of the situation, yet challenges remain.
It is so difficult to get people excited or motivated about sea level rise and climate change generally because it's in the future. It's hard to get the public to care. But if we don't start working on this, the state has projected we will lose 90% of our tidal wetlands by 2080. So this is serious stuff. If you like to eat oysters, you like to eat crabs, you like to eat any fish, you gotta care about this issue.
But caring alone isn't enough. We need community action.
We need people to show up to their planning commission meetings at their local government. We need people to get involved with nonprofit organizations that are working on helping people and businesses and governments deal with the impacts of this changing risk that we're seeing right now.
Witnessing the impacts of climate change as they happen and through the futuristic lens of the Climate Central FloodVision Rover, which is on the move. gathering vital data to drive greater action in vulnerable coastal communities.
Well, actually, several months ago, I started in Blue Hill, Maine. I'm traveling all down the East Coast, down and out to Key West, back up and around to Tampa, and then through the Gulf Coast to Houston, Texas, over 20 states.
The Edge of America tour is not just opening eyes. It's revealing the future we must face and sparking the change we need to embrace. For YurView, I'm Cheryl Nelson.